So thank you so much for joining in on this podcast. For those of you who have not yet met my husband, this is Neil. Neil is a pretty private guy, so this is a big thing for him. So thank you, honey, for coming on here.
Thank you.
Just a little bit about Neil. We have been married for, 11 years now. Together for 15, almost 16 years. Can't even believe that is what's going on with us. But we now work in the home together. So we typically kind of get our stations of where we want to work in the house. And then we come together at the end of the evening in our hot tub and kind of talk about what happened in our events for the day. And we usually talk a lot about the COVID situation. And that's sort of why we're on today. We wanted to really explain to the people who are interested why we, Neil and I, have decided not to get vaccinated. This is a very sensitive subject, and it's a little nerve-wracking. I don't know how you feel. You probably aren't as nervous as I am, but I have received a lot of feedback from people who have been openly expressed or are openly expressing themselves and have received a lot of backlash, a lot of hate, a lot of negativity, and have warned me to probably not do this. I think you actually at one point were discouraging me to do this, but I have to be true to, first of all, the people who want to know, and also true to myself. And I do feel that there's probably a lot of people that are in the same situation as Neil and I are right now, and maybe are not comfortable or brave enough to share their story or don't have the platform to do so. So I thought maybe if we could sit here and sort of talk about how we got to where we are, maybe there would be a little more understanding amongst some people, and hopefully we can just open our minds a little bit, because I think right now there's a lot of closed minds, and I think it's so important that we all try to listen to each and every person that has a story that's we're all going through this, but some of us have just decided to go a different route. And I think it's important that I am honest and open and share sort of where we got there or got here. First of all, I'll start by saying that it is not a very fun situation to be in. None of us. I think we're all very tired.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what side everybody's done with.
Exactly. And we also probably should be very clear that we don't look down upon or think negatively of anyone who has decided to get, I don't even know if we should be saying that word, because we were all told, 7 or 8 months ago, that this was going to end our pandemic. We were going to carry on with our lives. We were going to be able to travel. We were going to live like normal human beings again. And we were all very much looking forward to that. And as we all can see now, that this is not actually what's happening. But let's just go back and talk about how Neil and I got to where we are in terms of deciding not to get the V. So basically how it started for us is we live in Kelowna, but I made a trip to Calgary to finish my tattoo in early spring, so end of March, early April of 2021. And I drove. It was I love that. I actually love that drive. It's so incredibly beautiful. Won't do it in the winter, but in the summer, I love it. So I put my favorite podcast on, listen, got gas once, maybe twice, can't remember. That literally was my only stop, and spent 3 or 4 fun evenings in Calgary. At the time that I was there, I spent 4 or 5 hours getting my tattoo finished, or I don't know if I got finished, but we worked on it. And then because, of course, we lived there for so long, there's a lot of people that we wanted to see. So I kind of organized a little get together. I had rented a tiny little house in, what is that area called? Sunnyside. Because I had Tempest with me. Neil at the time was really struggling with a bulging disc and sciatica. So he just was out of commission to come with me, but also couldn't take care of a brand new puppy. So I took Tempe, rented this house so I could take care of her. So I organized a small little get together because I knew that I didn't have time to see everyone individually. And I did say, please don't feel stressed about or pressure to come to the little get together, because obviously with COVID, there were some restrictions. I wanted to make sure everyone felt comfortable, and obviously said, if you're not feeling well, don't come. So I think in our tiny little house that I rented, super tiny, like maybe 800 square feet, maybe not even quite. I had a little get together. I think there was like 6 or 7 of us. And we shared some sushi and some wine, and we had an awesome time. And there was hugging, there was sipping of wine, no masks. And the next day, I got up early, did a live workout, which I was scheduled to do on Instagram. Then I got in my car, and Tempe and I headed home. And on the way home, I did feel a little bit run down, a little bit tired. When I got home, Neil does all of our cooking. I know, I'm very lucky. And so when I arrived home in the evening, my favorite meal, steak, kale Caesar salad, potatoes, was all waiting for me. He made me feel like he missed me, which was kind of nice. And then I sat down to eat, and I'm a good eater, and I had no appetite, none. And I don't think I had eaten much on the drive. Maybe it's just a few snacks. So I said to him, this is very strange, but I don't really feel like eating. He said, you're probably just run down. I had just finished a big launch for my business. And he's like, you're probably just run down. So I actually ended up just hanging out, going to bed pretty early. Woke up the next day, and I had made plans to see my parents the next day. And I just thought, laying in bed, I wonder if I should get tested, because I'm so in tune to my body. I could tell that it wasn't quite just being run down. Very mild symptoms, but because my parents are both in a category of being more high risk, they...
I thought you were just being crazy.
Yes, I know.
I thought you were being nuts.
Yes. And that's...
You made the right choice, though.
Yeah, exactly. And you do, honestly, probably most of the time think I'm over-exaggerating and make up weird things.
No.
Well,
but that time I thought you were.
Yeah, you usually do, but that's okay. We won't get into that because we have a lot to talk about today. So anyway, I knew I was seeing my parents the next day. I really didn't want to risk putting them at harm. My dad, as most of you, well, maybe none of you know, but he has a lung disease. So of course we really need to be careful with him. And at that time, none of them had been V'd. I don't think.
No, I think that's right. Yeah, it wasn't till the summer that they really started to roll it out
for
our parents' age group.
Right. And so went, got tested, came home within a few hours. Lo and behold, I tested positive for COVID. And they told me to quarantine for 2 weeks, stay away from Neil, separate rooms, no sleeping together, wear masks. And I of course said to him, and he just said, no, that's not happening.
Well, it would have been disingenuous to suggest that. Like, by the time we even got that information, we'd already slept in our room for 3 or 4 nights, right? To even at that point tell the health officials that, yeah, fine, we'll just stay in separate parts of the house. By then it's already over.
Yes.
There was no reason to change our behavior, frankly,
exactly.
at that point.
Yeah. Exactly. So it just didn't make any sense. We had already decided that if I tested positive, chances are he was eventually going to get it. And then we were almost kind of relieved because we felt like we would have some natural immunity. A lot was still being unknown, or we're still learning a lot about that, but this is was sort of our thought patterns at this time with what information we knew.
It couldn't be bad, really, because I think even at the time, it was already pretty well understood that younger folk, healthy people weren't really suffering negatively. There's the odd anecdotal story, obviously, about younger people that were maybe struggling in different ways, but I know I certainly took that view. I think you probably took the view that it wasn't really, we weren't threatened by it. We didn't feel afraid by it. So
No.
the idea of getting COVID probably wasn't going to be that big a deal.
Exactly. When I got the phone call, I didn't at all feel nervous or afraid because I was quite confident that I had already had it for a few days and just felt tired. When I looked up, I had a tiny little headache, but mostly just a little bit more fatigue than usual. And I think that's why sometimes it's for people who are young and healthy. Yes, I do call myself young. He's 6 years younger than me. I know it's hard to tell, but when you're young and healthy, you have the confidence that you're going to just, at least I did, I don't want to speak for everyone, I felt like I was going to be okay, and I also felt more than comfortable allowing him to have it or get it if he so in fact tested positive eventually. Of course, followed proper protocol, called all of the people who I'd had the get together with the sushi and the wine and my tattoo artist, and called them all. They all went and got tested right away. Every single person came back with a negative test, which was shocking to me. And I thought, wow, maybe this isn't the contagious strand or strain, or what is it, strand? Variant, thank you.
Whatever.
But that was a big shock for me because we were in such a small area, we were indoors, we had definitely been sharing wine. So that was a bit of a shock to me. And probably a week went by where you were like, I'm not going to get this.
It was more like 8 or 9 days.
Right.
Because you got home on a Sunday, got tested on Monday, got results on Tuesday or Wednesday. And it was the following Wednesday or Thursday before. So I had already been exposed to you for 8 or 9 days, maybe even 10 days by the time I felt I was showing the same symptoms that you had.
Right. You woke up one morning and said, I feel you had a sore throat.
No. I had a headache.
And you were tired.
After walking the dogs.
Right.
For 2 days in a row, I was tired.
Yes.
And that was the extent of my symptoms.
Right.
You lost your taste and smell a little bit.
Yes, I did lose my taste and smell, which, I'll be honest, was the worst part for me. I love all the lotions and potions and the perfumes, and all of that was gone. I know it sounds trivial, but when it happens, it is quite something. And even more importantly, the no taste thing was awful. I love food. I enjoy eating food, and to sit down and to be hungry and to not be able to taste was quite something. So it was awful, and I was concerned because I had heard that sometimes people don't get that back for months. Mm-hmm. And I just could not even imagine not being able to taste my food for more than a couple of weeks. Thankfully, after a week or so, I was able to regain my smell and taste back almost 100%, which was a great relief. And so then he obviously then had to quarantine from the day he started showing symptoms, 14 more days. So you were stuck inside for almost a full month.
Yep.
We followed all the rules. Obviously, there's still so much learning that was going on. This is such an unusual experience for all of us to go through. We want to make sure we're doing our part to follow the rules, and believed that that this was something that we all should do. We were on board. And we, up until just recently, were on board for everything because, again, there was so much learning. quarantining when there was the first lockdown, masking, respecting people's space, washing your hands, all of the things that we were told to do, we followed because, of course, we all wanted this to go away and carry on with our life. And then the vaccines started rolling out. And I've never had a flu shot, and I know this is not a flu shot, but I also never get a flu shot. I'm not anti-vaccine. If I had children, I absolutely would have vaccinated them and I think you would be on the board too.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us would ever say we're anti-vaccine.
No, like we would have
smallpox,
definitely,
polio, whatever. Like I don't even know what they are because we don't have kids.
Right.
But like the laundry list of things that children get. Like I don't think that there's any pushback on any of that stuff.
Absolutely not. And I think because we never had the flu shot, or because we had COVID and felt like we had immunity, our stance was like, let's just make sure that the people who are vulnerable, the elderly, the people with core mobility, what is it?
I don't think we're supposed to use that term anymore.
Oh, okay.
It was comorbidity, but
Okay.
I think some wokester probably stepped in and said that's not appropriate. So it's underlying medical condition.
Thank you. This is why we have him joining me, because he needs to make sure I'm using the proper terminology and getting all my facts straight. He has the brain that's everything stays in. Mine kind of goes in this way and out the other way. So he's here to help make sure that I'm getting the facts completely straight and making sure I'm speaking as clearly as I possibly can, because as you all know, I love to just go off on these tangents. So that was our stance, and that was in the early beginnings of summer. We just really felt comfortable that we had some natural immunity. We weren't risking anyone. We were healthy. We were really stepping up our lifestyle habits to make sure we were staying as healthy as we possibly could, not just for ourselves, but for the people that we were spending our time with. Neil's parents live in Kelowna as well as mine. And that's what happened. Your parents got the V, my parents got the V. We were happy that they did. We still to this day believe that they should get it. I mean, that's how I feel. I don't know how you feel, but
and I think the data suggests that they should.
Yes. And I think that that's one thing we should a couple of things I wanted to say before we continue on is Neil and I feel the exact same way. He is not swaying me in one direction. I'm not swaying him in any direction. Together we've come as a couple with our information that we have acquired, that we are on the exact same page and we support each other, whether or not if we do change our mind. I don't see that ever happening. I'm not speaking for you.
Never's a long time, but at this point, no, I agree with you.
Yes. But we also would support.
There's obvious influence, from one and another, but it's not like it's one-sided in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Like there's always oh, did you see this thing, or did I see that, or whatever the case is, and it's and I think it's important to balance everybody's view with counter information as best as you can, and make sure you're not living in an echo chamber, and to make sure that you are looking at sort of the totality of evidence when you make these decisions.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you can't really say, I don't think you can say that we've had no influence on one another. We live together, we spend a lot of time together, but it's not like you're pushing me in one direction or I'm pushing you in one direction. We just we've landed in the same place, and influence is good, but undue influence I would think is probably a bad thing, which doesn't exist here. No.
And the other thing is I just wanted to say before we continue to tell sort of what's been going on with us, is that when you make a decision to go against what the majority is, and in this case it was to get the V, you become you make it more of a responsibility to make sure you are up to date with the latest information, and that is from real journals and Google. Although we sometimes have been criticized for what's on the internet, but
Well, I think it's important to, like, before you go any further down the path, I think it's really important to address like a couple of big pushbacks, right? Like the biggest pushback that you hear, and I don't want to make it sound like it's like your side or my side or whatever.
No.
Like the biggest pushback that we hear on our point of view is, well, where'd you do your research? On the internet? It's like, well, yeah, dummy. Like, as long as you're smart about where you're getting your information, and I'm talking about information from sort of the most credible medical journals that you can read. And unfortunately, a lot of them are online, like the New England Journal of Medicine, the Lancet out of the UK, even government data. I don't think there's anybody sitting here telling you a story about how we're doing our research on Instagram and Facebook. Like,
right.
That's not what's going on. And the second pushback is, well, you're not doctors, so, why are you qualified to offer advice? And I think there's two things there. One, I'm not offering advice to anybody. And two, I'm not going to be disparaging to doctors. It's not at all what I'm trying to say with this, but to be able to read and understand a study, I think is not necessarily something that has to be defined within the medical field. I mean, if we're looking at studies that cover tens or hundreds or however many thousands of people, and it's really just sort of a report of empirical evidence. And at that point, you're talking more about like probability and statistics than you are about medical doctoring. In no way is anybody going to sit here and say, I can diagnose a patient better than a medical doctor could. But I will say, I'm pretty sure I'm reasonably good at reading facts and data and coming up with my own interpretation of the statistics and the probability, and understanding things like confidence intervals and statistical significance is something that I think there's a lot of people that understand that, but that is a more important skill set than, quote unquote, being a doctor. Because I've heard that directly, and you have too.
Mm-hmm.
We know who we're talking about, get criticism all the time from it, but it's not, again, I don't think anybody here believes that we know better than anybody else.
No.
I think we believe we know better for ourselves than what other people are telling us, generally speaking. And really, it's like you said, like we're not opposed to vaccines. We're not opposed to helping get through this whole thing. I don't think anybody's suggesting that. I know I can speak for myself, and I think you agree. I'm just opposed to vaccine mandates. I just believe that people should be free to make their own decisions for their own bodies and their own. And now the other one that kind of come in is, well, you do have a choice. It's like, well, technically, yes, but in reality, no. That's not a choice. That is just not a choice. If you want to reach out to me directly, we can have that conversation. It's not a choice. In fact, it doesn't really impact our day-to-day lives that much, really.
No.
But the thing that kind of gets under my skin more than anything else is this creation of sort of two tiers of society. And that weighs heavy, I would say, on both of us.
Yes.
It's like, well, okay, I can't go out for dinner, which is kind of stupid because we're pretty good customers. But that's not the thing that's really the driving point here. The thing that's sort of always in the back of my mind for sure is that I'm not a full participating member of society today. And that just doesn't sit well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the big thing is a lot of people say, well, you have your choice, you can have your freedom as well. And we really, I think we both emphatically agree that it's not a freedom that you're granted if you agree to take the vaccine. It is permission. And I have said this over and over and over again to the people closest to me, my parents. They have just begged us to just, get the V so we can live more normally, so we don't feel such a it's lonely at times. They just said, you can still fight what you believe in, just get vaccinated so you can. And I have said to my parents and quite a few close friends, because I haven't really shared this at all yet, I've said, I have pictured myself getting in the car on probably more than 100 times by now, driving to get my the vaccine, and I've pictured it, and I have opened my mind to it, and every single time I think about maybe doing it, I break down, and I know that I would be absolutely I would be so incredibly disappointed in myself. Because again, I was raised, I guess we were probably both raised the same way. When you believe in something, it doesn't matter how difficult it gets, you have to stick with what you believe in, even when it gets hard. And I'm not at all saying that people are getting the V to make things easier. I think some people did, but also I do believe that a lot of people have a fear and are nervous about that. And 100%, if you are feeling that sort of thing, then you absolutely are entitled and should do what is right for you. But for Neil and I, it is not an option. I've said this to my mom. If someone can give me some information and make me feel differently, then I would do it in a heartbeat, because it's not fun. It's awful. I know I cry every single day. I know I see you struggling often. So making the decision to do what we've done is not great. It's not terrible. I mean, there's definitely, we're trying to live our lives as normally as we possibly can. But it's definitely something that is not easy. And so if I could be persuaded or taught or someone could shed some light on me with me or to me, then I would be more than happy to get a vaccine. But right now at this point, as we sit here, we're just not there.
Well, let's even sort of explore that just for a second too, because I think as far as sort of the group of folks that have, I hate the term vaccine hesitancy because it sort of has a weird negative connotation. So let's just say the group of people that have decided not to get the vaccine. We're fortunate, right? We live in a beautiful house. We have each other first and foremost. We have our own gym. We've got a wall of wine that would probably put most restaurants out of business. We like to be at home a lot too. So we're the lucky ones. I really, really empathize with the person who lives in a condo, who socializing was a huge part of their lives and they've made the decision not to do this, and they're being penalized for that. And that to me is where it really gets sad. And I mean, we could go way down the path of whatever psychological impacts that's having on the population. I think it's reasonably identifiable at this point that there has been some. If you don't believe that, again, I'd suggest that you look at some of the places where I've been reading a lot of things. But those are the people that I really, really empathize with. Or the people that have children who have to, make decisions for their family, for their kid to be able to participate in extracurricular sport or be on this team or that, or travel for different things, whether that's for ski racing or playing hockey or whatever the case is. Those are the people that I really, really feel bad for. And I don't know what the solution is for those people. And especially, let's talk about the rules. Let's talk about these rules. I'm going to talk about British Columbia more than anything, just because that's where we live, right? But British Columbia is one of the places where you have to show proof in order to enter a lot of businesses. And there's not a negative test option. So in theory, Like, so here's a day. So Tish and I had a negative test because we entered the country. We came back to the country. This is back in October before the travel bans kind of came in. And we had a negative test. We had been isolating, following the rules, doing what we were supposed to do. So we had a negative test. And just out of curiosity, because it felt like it was kind of a day that we could maybe be less offensive to various different businesses. We're like, tried to go for a beer that afternoon. And did we go to 2 places or 3 places? 2. And at both places, they're like, well, do you have your proof of vaccination? We said, no, but I have a test that proves to you that I don't have a virus. And, I feel for the businesses because they've been put in a position to police a lot of this. I'm going to say it's bullshit because it is. So in theory, and we can get into some of the details about this too, maybe we will in a minute, but in theory, you've got a room full of people that are sitting there enjoying whatever it is, a beer, or food, or whatever, and they're being served by somebody, all with the proof of vaccine. I hate that word. It hurts every time I say it. But any one of those people could be carrying a virus. We know this now. I'll give you the information. If you don't believe that, this is a very easy point. And here are 2 people with a test that proves to the person at the door that we are not carrying said virus. But because the rules in this province are the way they are, that's not good enough. And it's ridiculous. I mean, even when they rolled this out, like, let's just call this what it is. Like, for those that don't live in British Columbia, you don't need to show proof if you enter a facility that serves food over a counter and doesn't serve alcohol. Anything else, you have to show proof. At any other restaurant, you have to show proof, and gyms and all the other things we know about. But so then the difference between that facility and a restaurant where you sit down and get served and it serves alcohol, the difference between those 2 places basically is a server that brings your stuff, like takes your order and sits down at and brings your food to your table. But that server doesn't have to show proof. So again, like I don't think anybody is a denier on this side of the table. I guess all I'm saying is I would like to see some, if we're going to have rules, let's just at least make them make sense.
Yes, exactly. And, I've also talked to a couple of people who have told me their story of being unV'd and going to work for 8 hours a day, serving people. Serving, I don't know if you've ever served. You've served. You were a bartender.
For a very short.
Yes, me too, while I was in school. Same with you. Yeah. It's not a fun job. I mean, it's fun, I guess, when you're in university, it's the best probably job you can do. It pays the best. It's, fun. And the best part about working at restaurants like that is you get to sit down at the end of the shift and have a drink yourself, and you get to eat because you've been running around for like who knows how long without eating, and you've been serving people. And the best part for me was to sit down and enjoy a meal and have someone serve me after a long day. And those people are allowed to work there for 6 to 8 hours a day, but are not allowed to sit down and eat a meal after. Which, again, doesn't really make sense and doesn't seem fair. A lot of this doesn't seem fair, and I think that is the biggest reason why I felt like I needed to talk about this, is because when you actually sit down and listen to the rules, there's no rhyme or reason behind them. When you challenge people or ask questions, you're just told these are the rules. There's never an explanation as to why. And we have gone to the highest level of authority to try to get answers, and not one person has provided us with one single explanation as to why these rules are set into place. I thought we would quickly talk about our experiences as what we've experienced as individuals and citizens who have decided to not get the V. because I think the divide is also something that is extremely disappointing and
What's the most disappointing in
Yeah.
my mind?
yeah, I think that is what I cry the most about, because it's hurtful to see people treating people a certain way because they have tried or are reluctant to do something that isn't followed up with proper information or backup. And the more days that go by, the more information I read, the more comfortable I get with my decision. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish that I could get up and read some information that said, this is okay, it's safe, you are not going to get the virus, you are going to be able to live your life like a normal human being.
Mm-hmm.
But every single day I read and watch and see that is not happening, even for the people who've decided to get the V. So I feel more and more comfortable with it, but I think it's important that we share what it has been like. And this is not me trying to have you feel sorry for us. Again, it's just a platform in which I can tell my story. And I think it's also something that I can do for other people who have also been dealing with similar stories. The first one was when we flew from Canada, Vancouver to California, no problems. We obviously had a negative test flying into the country. I don't even think they looked, to be honest with you.
Into the U.S.?
Yes.
Well, first of all, it was an antigen test, which
Right.
It's like 15 minutes you get your results.
Right.
And no, I think the customs officer did look.
I can't remember. I was
But
so happy to be there.
Whatever it was super mellow.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had a great time in California.
That was nice.
We celebrated our 11th year anniversary.
Because we couldn't our 10th.
Because we missed our 10th anniversary because of COVID. we went to Banff, and it was still nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was
fun.
It was not our normal celebration.
No.
We got married in Sonoma, and so we go there every year and celebrate. So the Big 10 was in Banff. That's okay. First world problems, really. And so we were so excited to just feel like normal human beings, because there already were the mandates here in BC at this time.
Mm-hmm.
We'd already gone, a couple months without being able to do the certain things that right?
Well, yeah, but like just take a step back. Like the reason why we went to California actually was because the mandates came in, and we're like, fuck it.
Yeah.
We can get on a plane and go to California and spend 4 nights eating out in restaurants and doing all the things that we want to do. We can't do at home.
Right.
And that's what drove the decision.
Right. And
we actually, full disclosure, we tried to stay in the Okanagan. We're big, support local people.
Yeah, that's true.
But a lot of these mandates are making it a lot harder to support local. I'm just going to say that for what it is. And we tried to book a couple of nights at a hotel down there.
Naramata.
Yeah. And we didn't have to call them out. But the mandates came in. I called them. They said they were going to enforce the rules that they've been told. And so we had to change our plans. So instead of dropping a couple $1,000s on a local economy here, we went to California.
And it was amazing. It was so nice.
Yeah.
Why am I feeling sad about that?
Well, because it feels like a long time ago. And because of the experience that we had when we came home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like it's weird and this is California. Like if you kind of look at sort of all of the United States, it's like one of the more restrictive states, frankly. But especially outside of the big cities, it's kind of life is normal. And it was, it was fun. And it's one thing to it's wild to say this, but having grown up in Canada and spent all of our lives here, this breath, this release when we landed in California, was really something.
It
and
was.
then we just kind of forgot about it all for like 4 days. But then we came home.
Yes.
And that wasn't the same situation.
No. We obviously took a test, a PCR. So to get back into Canada, you are required to take a PCR test, which costs...
Well, it's over 200 US, 220.
So that was fine. We were more than happy to do that.
Yeah. We knew that, like, those are the rules.
Yes.
Rules, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right in saying the rules are fine.
Yes. Yeah.
We knew
we were happy to do it.
Yeah.
Took the test, came back negative after 4 days of no masks, no isolation, nothing. It was incredible. And we get on the plane knowing that everyone also is required before flying, whether you're VID or not, at the time, to show a negative test. So
Still today.
Oh, still today you still have to show...
Everybody coming into Canada has to show...
Okay, whether you're... Okay.
Well, you can't be on it.
Oh, right. Right.
That's what's changed.
Right.
Yeah.
We get on the plane. We were given masks. And then the attendant comes on and recommends everyone use the mask that they provided because they're 3-plied. Please keep the mask on at all times. And if there's someone else in your row, what did they say? If there's someone else in your row sipping and the mask is down, keep yours up. Or if someone's standing,
like they're breathing in your mouth.
Like, I was sitting listening to this, looking at Neil, like, am I living in, like, what is happening? We're literally all just showed a negative test to get on this plane. What are we doing? And it just, to me, even when we were in the grocery stores a year ago, getting my produce, listening to the intercom, please stay within 6 feet and please refrain. And I remember listening to that on the intercom and looking at Neil and saying, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
What is happening? And we're walking around like robots. And I don't know, for some reason, can I say this? Brainwashing attempts, they weren't working for me at all. I just was like, can they just stop with this? I mean, we're all wearing masks, we're all following rules, we don't need to listen to it. The whole 30 minutes we're in the mall. And the same thing on the plane. I just was like, what is happening? And everyone on the plane is taking their mask out of the plastic wrap and putting them on. And I just thought, I mean, what is happening to people? Think about what they're asking you to do. And of course, we took off the mask and put it on, and I wore it. And I guess it was just the 4 days that we'd been in California and felt normal. It just was incredibly difficult. But whatever, we get home, we fly into Vancouver. And do you want to tell a story or should I? Because I might cry.
Oh, I'll tell a story
Okay.
then. Yeah, so we arrive in Vancouver. And if anyone hasn't traveled, there's this app you're supposed to download. It's called the Arrive Can app. And you're supposed to upload all your information into it. And it's the first time I had done it, so I messed it up, right? So, like, we're Nexus, so, we're in the Nexus line, there's nobody there, we walk right up to the customs officer, and I've buggered this Arrive Can app thing. Didn't fill out properly, so she's like, okay, just go stand over there and just fill the whole thing
And she was
out.
lovely.
She was lovely. It was like, wow, that's refreshing. It was a nice
Yes.
customs officer for once.
Mm-hmm.
And finally got it all done, get this code that comes up, show it to them with the Nexus card, or at least the declaration that comes as you're normally going through customs. And she got to a point where in this thing, it shows as well, you're unvaccinated. And her demeanor on the spot just changed. And she had been very warm and welcoming and
Patient.
accommodating.
Very patient with us too.
Yeah, to help with the whole app thing. And like right in that moment. And then she was, and I appreciate that this is on the website, but she was threatening us with up to 3 years in jail and $1 million in fines if we are found to not obey the isolation requirement and we end up infecting somebody with COVID-19. And
they also said that we now had to be escorted to get
and we needed to get tested again.
And also the last thing she said to us, even though we literally had just shown her our negative test that we had taken a few hours prior, the very last thing she said to us was, and if you infect anyone with COVID, we will find you and we will put you in jail.
Yeah. Quote unquote. Which, welcome home. So we did our thing, right? Like we go get the extra test, and I mean, it's no big deal. Like I'm gonna try to stay away from opinions as much as I can, try to stick more to facts. But the one opinion that I will offer is that if this is truly about safety and limiting the spread of COVID-19, which is what all of our government officials have told us that's the objection, I think the evidence suggests now the only way to do that is going to be with more testing. So if it comes to testing, I'm happy to comply with it. I mean, there's definitely a limitation to that, but test me every morning. I don't care. If I have COVID, I won't go do some things, and if I do have it, I'll stay home. If I don't, leave me alone. Maybe let's talk about those facts, just to get it out of the way, because I think there's really only two factual things that we need to talk about. One, I'll just list them and then we'll talk about them. One, it's become pretty obvious that this shot doesn't eliminate transmission, doesn't eliminate infection, and may not even reduce that. That last part's a little bit up for debate. And secondly, the fact that we had COVID, I think, is important. That you can't ignore that. And there's a lot of evidence that suggests that, I'm going to say the term natural immunity, even though I was told by somebody that it's not a proper medical term. The CDC uses it, so natural immunity is a term.
And there's a lot of studies that are coming out that says natural immunity actually
100%. So let's do that one first. What did I see yesterday? I think there's something like 130 studies now globally that have tested natural immunity versus vaccinated immunity. And I think almost unanimously, with the exception of one test, and we can talk about that if we want to, but I might just ignore that. Also, all but one of those tests clearly shows natural immunity is as strong, if not stronger, than the vaccinated immunity. And, do they... I think really the only debate is how much better is it? Agree with it, don't agree with it, I don't care. There's a lot of study that suggests that. So to ignore that even as part of the mandate that's going on in Canada now is, I think, probably irresponsible on the part of the rule makers. There's a lot of places in the world that actually takes natural immunity into account. They seem to put time limits on it, which is kind of an odd thing because they're not putting time limits on the shot. But whatever it is, it's at least part of the discussion, at least in other places. It is not part of the discussion here, which is a little bit alarming to me. So I'd encourage you, if you're at all curious about that, read about it. There are, like I said, I think it's in the neighborhood of 130 studies now. Everything from the biggest study that was done was in Israel a couple of months ago. I think there's 700,000 people that were part of that. There's another clinic in Cleveland, are kind of the big headline ones that basically in that one there's a control group of people group of folks, healthcare workers that had been infected exactly 0 of them had shown any kind of reinfection. So like there's a lot of evidence that definitely supports that. The one that I'm sure is going to be a little bit more contentious with people is the concept that that the shot doesn't really have an impact on, it doesn't eliminate transmission. Whether or not it reduces it, I think, is still a little bit up for debate. And it's certainly the period of time post injection is obviously something that has a big impact on this as well. But I mean, you just look at numbers. Like if you pull up any press release from Ontario, because every day they report these numbers, and over 50% of new cases are in the quote unquote fully vaccinated group.
Can you say that one more time? Because I want people to hear that one more time, because I think that you're giving a lot of information, but what you just said is, I think, really important. And where did you get that information?
From Global News, CTV, CBC, they all report it. They may not say it on the news,
right?
But if you pull up sort of the press releases on their websites, they also, in Ontario, it's interesting. I don't know why, but Ontario is one province that reports that split on a regular basis. So I've noticed it over the last month, and it's pretty consistent. Every day is a little bit different, but it's pretty consistent that between 50 and 60% of the new cases in Ontario are in fully vaccinated people. So that's a thing. Now, out comes the tinfoil hat, but like British Columbia doesn't report those numbers. But British Columbia does report those splits in vaccinated versus unvaccinated based on hospitalizations and ICUs. Very clearly, those numbers still support the idea that more people with severe outcomes are unvaccinated.
Yes.
For whatever reason. Seems to be a fact. But the fact that British Columbia is not reporting new cases with that split obviously means that there's a lot of vaccinated people getting the virus.
Yes.
It just does. They would report it otherwise. It's the same as like any time that these guys in sports, whatever. You know, like who was it? The Islanders, I think, like 40, or was it the Senators?
Senators first, then the Islanders.
Senators were like 40% of the roster had tested positive. I think the Islanders was not far off of that.
10.
You've had other guys like Sidney Crosby, for example.
LeBron James.
Yeah, they're all over. But it's funny to me in how the media reports it is that when somebody is unvaccinated, it's in the headline. But when they're vaccinated, it's either not mentioned or they'll bury it into the story somewhere. So I think it's pretty clear at this point. And the best part about the sports thing is really interesting because one, they get tested more often. Mm-hmm. So you're just going to find more cases. Like if you look at the percentage of take the NHL, like the percentage of players in the NHL that I think have tested positive over the last, actually over the pandemic is a much higher portion than the portion of people in the population. So all that, they're tested more regularly. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you're gonna find more breakthrough cases in that portion of the population.
Exactly, yeah.
And I don't know, it all just comes back to the fact that, and this is a fact, at this point in time, the effectiveness of this shot is good for certain people because it reduces their likelihood of severe outcome from the disease, which means that that's a personal benefit to the shot. I think it's pretty clear at this point, we can say there's really no community benefit to the shot because people that have it are still catching it and spreading it to other people all over the place.
Well, and we've heard Teresa Tam say that they carry the same viral loads.
Yeah.
I saw that on the...
No, that's a great point. Like, what's her title?
I don't know.
She's like Chief Medical Officer or whatever her title is, but she's like our Dr. Fauci. Yeah. Like she, very clearly, this is on video, recently, mind you, but very clearly says that, yeah, of course, vaccinated people can get and spread the disease. And like you said, viral loads seem to be very similar across both populations.
Yeah.
So certainly not statistically different.
So my question is then, why, if that's the case and everything is coming out, why are we still being mandated to live differently than the people who have decided to get the vaccine? And that is my biggest question, and that is my biggest dig in, because it just does not make any sense at all.
Right.
And I think I'll just quickly talk about what happened a couple weeks ago when I went to the Banff Springs.
Sure.
Again, it's just I'm telling these stories just because people need to understand how certain people are being treated. And again, I'm not looking for anyone's pity, or I don't want anyone's empathy. It's just unbelievably cruel to hear what some people are going through, and I think it needs to be told. The story needs to be told. I was asked by Impact Magazine in the spring or summer, I don't remember when, if I would be one of the chosen top trainers to come to Banff and conduct a 4-day wellness boot camp at the Banff Springs Hotel. Of course, I jumped up on that opportunity, but was a little bit concerned because of my medical status. So I called the Banff Springs Hotel before I had even agreed to it, and just made sure the rules were going to be, I was going to be able to work around those rules being unveiled. Basically, they said, yeah, no problem. You just have to show a negative test within 72 hours, and you can enjoy basically the same as what Alberta was doing. Mm-hmm. And so,
yeah, it was exactly in line with.
Yes. And so I felt comfortable, I agreed to do this, I was super excited. And I, within a few days driving to Banff, received an email from, I don't exactly know who it was, but he's like head of organizing events or something. And he just was excited to meet me in person, was thankful for doing the podcast about the retreat. I had the two other trainers on a couple of days prior just to kind of bring up the hype and get the numbers going and bring some more awareness to it. So that was really nice of him. But then he did say, just to let you know, we are going to require you to show a negative test every single day while you're in the Banff Springs Hotel. And, it didn't sit well with me, but again, I didn't want to cause any problems for Impact Magazine. I was so honored to be chosen. I was so excited to go. So I agreed. We go to the Banff Springs. We have a negative test because we're going into Alberta. We get a little card, and we enjoy our first night at the Banff Springs. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. So I agreed to go every morning to get the test done. So the first morning I show up at the lobby, and I said to the concierge, I'm here to get my my COVID test done. And she thought I meant to buy one. I was like, no, I'm required to get one done. She didn't know what I was talking about. I gave her the name of the person that was supposed to meet me. She then called that person, and she said, yeah, she's coming, no problem. Very nice. I will say this right now. Every single employee that I dealt with at the Banff Springs Hotel was amazing. All the servers, all the hotel staff, what would you call them? Cleaners?
Sure.
Every person that worked there was, from the minute we walked into that hotel to left, were so kind, so professional. It was amazing. So I stood there, waited, and I see this woman start walking towards me, a little, with a little bit of a aggressive walk towards me. And immediately I could tell that her tone towards me was going to be a bit negative. And so she said, this way, didn't say anything else, and we proceeded to walk to the boardroom that she was going to be doing the test. She wouldn't walk beside me. She just walked really, really fast, and when I tried to keep up with her, she picked up her speed, and right away I could tell that she literally was making a point that because I didn't have the vaccine, that I was a danger to her health. Even though I had showed the hotel the day prior a negative test. So we walk into the boardroom. It's a big room. She points at me and says, "You sit there. There's a test there." I felt almost like she was a teacher and I was a bad student, the way she spoke to me. Sat in the chair, and she proceeded to stand in the furthest corner of the boardroom, as far away from me as she possibly could be. And it hurt my feelings. Because, I don't know. Anyway, proceeded to get the test. And she, it was confusing, and she was quite abrupt with me, and I was shaking. I was so upset. And so I decided I'd stick up for myself. And I said, so I assume everyone in the convention fitness wellness conference is going to also get tested. And she said, no, like that. And I said, but why is that? She said, well, you've chosen not to get vaccinated. And I said, but we all know that that doesn't really matter anymore. And she said, we're just following AHS.
Yeah, it was the wrong quote, because not like it wasn't an AHS rule anyway.
Right, but I'm saying AHS, is that the right abbreviation? AHS rules. Yeah. And I looked at her, and I didn't say anything, but I knew she was lying, because that's not the AHS protocol. AHS protocol is every 3 days, not every day. I just knew that I was not going to win any type of battle or argument. So the next 6 days, I proceeded to show up at the boardroom, get tested every single day, received and showed proof that I had a negative test, but it didn't matter. She still decided that it was too scary for her to stand anywhere close to me, and stood not just 6 feet away from me, but as far away as she possibly could. And to be treated like that was hard, but I never wanted to cause a problem. I wanted to follow the rules. I was still very happy that I was there, but I have to say that I was very eager to leave. This is the province that I was born, raised in for 46 years of my life, and I could not wait to get in my car and leave. And it just left such a terrible taste in my mouth. So that was the other story that I have dealt with. But
no, I just think that's the message at the end of the day. If we're gonna wrap this up, like if you want to be blissfully ignorant to the situation and just kind of follow rules as they're put in front of you, go on with your daily life. Like I've had people say to me, well, my life hasn't been affected. I'm like, well, it has, because it requires permission. But that's not the point. Like, we can get into that debate, but I don't know that that's really what the intention here is. Like, it's really just to say that, like, if you want this to be over, you have to stop treating your fellow Canadians, your neighbors, you have to stop treating those people like shit. And there has to be sort of a unified approach to this whole thing. Because I can tell you that people that believe that what we believe, we're going to believe what we believe, and we're not going away. So we're going to be vocal about it. And I think it's such a topical thing that, like, being ignorant is just not a good excuse. I think you need to know what's going on. You need to, to use their term, like follow the science, but follow the real science. Don't.
And it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to want to take your time and make sure that what you're putting in your body is safe and going to do what it said it was going to do. I think that those things should be okay. Mm-hmm. And that's all we wanted to do, is just give the vulnerable a chance to get the V. We were just going to sit back and see how it went, because we both felt because we had had the virus before, we had natural immunity, we were protected against it, also protected to be spreading it more than the average person. We just needed some time to make a decision. And before you know it, we were forced and told that we were no longer going to be allowed to live like normal human beings in the society that we were born and raised in a country that we were born, raised in for 47 years. And that isn't sitting well with us. And it happened fast, because I said to Neil, how did we get here? How the hell did we get here? I hate this. I hate where we are. I hate feeling like this. I wish I could just go and get the vaccine. I don't like this. I hate it. I'm uncomfortable. But I can't change my mind. In my core value, in my soul, and this is what I said to my mom when she's begging me, please just go and get the shot. I say, Mom, I will be more sad, more depressed if I do that. And she understands now.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe the last thing I'll really say about it is maybe recharacterize what I said before. It's like, it's not going to go away, actually. It's not. I think the overwhelming evidence, and this is not my opinion, from epidemiologists all over the world, is that this thing is moving into an endemic phase if it's not already there. It's not going away. You're going to have to learn how to live with it. Arm yourself with knowledge and by being healthy. That's it. Because for those that don't understand the definition of endemic, that basically means that everybody is going to get it. And as long as you're healthy, you should be okay. Yeah. And if you want to add an extra layer of security by going and getting this shot or vaccine, whatever you want to call it, then do that.
Absolutely.
You should absolutely do what's best for you.
Totally.
But in addition to that, I would strongly urge anybody that's listening, don't do research on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. That's not what I'm saying. But if you go to the good, credible medical journals, all the information that I'm talking about, it's all there.
Well, we'll maybe put a few links to some of the studies we've talked about underneath this podcast. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about, some credible studies that are showing certain things that are leading us to the direction of the feeling that we are, they'll be under there. And I didn't want to cut you off. Did you finish?
No, but I was just going to say that more importantly, I think what you'll find, the more that you learn, the less that you'll be afraid. And I fear that the majority of the fear out there is residing in people that haven't taken the effort, that haven't sort of armed themselves again. I think that your best two lines of defense against this are going to be, one, your own level of health, and two, your level of knowledge. And you can't just take what you see at the 6 o'clock news verbatim, because they're not. I hate to say stuff like this because it kind of makes me feel like a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but there's a lot of fear mongering that's going on. And I think if you cut through the crap and you actually look at real data, it'll subside those fears. I truly believe that. We didn't even get into the stats, but whatever. It just, if anybody wants to get into that, I'm happy to have those conversations. But it,
for two of us, I mean, me even more than you, we have prided ourselves in being healthy, and making sure that we can fight off viruses and flus that come our way. Neil and I usually get the flu once a year. We're in bed for a couple of days and then that's it. Will we get the flu shot as we get older? Probably. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, your true defense and your only defense to making sure that when and if you do get whatever variant there is out there, that if you are healthy and you have a very strong immune system, that you are going to be okay. You are going to be okay. The numbers show it. What is the stats? 99 in our age group.
In our age group, 99.9%
of people who catch COVID. And of course, if you have underlying health issues, they're going to be complicated issues. And
but again, like that goes back to the concept of personal choice. Like
yes.
if that is something that you want to do for yourself, you should do that. Nothing should stop you.
Yeah.
Don't second guess it even.
No, 100%.
Just go do it. But I guess what my message for sure is, well, like stop enforcing it on other people.
Leave us alone.
Because there just is no one glove fits all type of solution for this.
There's not a black and gray or black and white. There's so much gray.
Yeah.
I cannot be compared to my dad, for example. Right? Like why are the rules exactly the same for him than they are for me? They shouldn't be. No. And I know that adds an extra layer of confusion or work. But I think at the end of the day, if people just let us live our life like normal human beings, and I think we would all be much happier and we would be less judgmental, and the divide, hopefully, I fear that the divide is already, you just said this, eventually we hope these mandates go away. Sorry, snoring dogs. If they don't go away, unfortunately, Neil and I have decided that we will not stay here. And that's heartbreaking, devastating for my parents, for Neil's parents, to hear that. It's not an easy decision. It's a painful one, especially because our parents are getting older. My dad is quite ill, and it's an agonizing thought to uproot everything that we have done already in the year we've moved here to go somewhere else. But we cannot stay in a place where these continue. We are trying to stay optimistic and positive that eventually they will be lifted and we will be able to live normally again in this country. My concern, and so is Neil, we were talking in our hot tub conversation last night, that we were nervous that even if they do go away, the divide is already so strong, the hate for the people they feel are responsible. People blame us for this being still an issue, which clearly it is not. The divide is already there. So I really hope that divide eventually goes away as well. Only time will tell. So in the meantime, Neil and I...
just get smart, get healthy. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. Legit. There's going to be no other way. And I think I've done a pretty good job of avoiding opinions, but I'll leave you with one. I promise you, when you stop allowing other people to tell you what you can and can't do, you'll just be happier. You just will. So.
No, on that note, thank you for joining me.
My
I asked him to join me. He initially said, no, you need to do this on your own. But then a couple days ago, he's like, okay, fine, I'll agree to do it. And I thank you because you speak so much clearer and you are much more composed than I am. So hopefully next time Neil is on the podcast, we have more interesting, positive things to talk about, because he does have a lot more exciting and new things that are happening in his life that we would love to share. But we just thought that this was a timely thing, and it was time to share what's been going on, because I think some of you are probably wondering. So thank you so much. I do appreciate you listening and having an open mind and an open heart. Please be sure to tell the people that you love them, that you do love them every single day. And thank you for joining in on my podcast
My
today.
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.